The amazing journey of a millionaire seeking an inspiring wife to transform a family. Jake Mercer leaned against the sleek granite counter of his sprawling kitchen, the sun streaming through the large windows, illuminating the polished wood and expansive walls that all represented his hard-earned success. Yet, despite the luxury surrounding him, a haunting emptiness gnawed at his insides. His beloved grandmother's absence had created a chasm that no amount of money could fill. She had been his anchor, teaching him the value of family, hard work, and loyalty. Now, with her gone, he felt adrift, a self-made millionaire with an aching void. He turned away from the opulence, his thoughts stirring chaos within. Could he genuinely connect with anyone? He longed for someone to share his world, yet that world seemed increasingly suffocating. The walls felt narrower, each reminder of his wealth amplifying his loneliness. His mind raced as doubts crept in. Was a man like him, fluent in the language of contracts and business deals, capable of loving someone who devoted her life to teaching kids? Moments stretched like elastic, and the unexpected was about to fracture the delicate threads of his solitude. Then she appeared, Mia. Those first conversations were like breathing fresh air after being submerged for too long. She was genuine, passionate, caring, everything he had unknowingly craved. Their perspectives on life mirrored each other's. They'd both struggled through hardships before finding their footing. But as Jake fell deeper into this connection, a nagging uncertainty shadowed him. What will my friends think? He'd wondered, the whispers of doubt pulling at him like relentless weeds. Could a woman from a modest background really endure the judgments that would inevitably come from his affluent circles? Before he could tether his thoughts, the tension escalated. One late night under a blanket of stars, the perfect moment arrived. He was teetering on the edge of a proposal when his hands unearthed an old family heirloom, stirring the embers of a legacy he thought he'd buried. This forgotten property belonged to his grandmother, a quaint plot with profound meaning, something overshadowed by the corporatization nipping at its edges. Jake knew that a formidable adversary was lurking in the business shadows, ready to snatch the land for a profit-driven development. Suddenly, the stakes were no longer just about love, but about family honor, the very thing Jake had always held above his wealth. He felt the crushing pressure between wanting a future with Mia and needing to protect his family's legacy. As the gravity of this realization settled in, dread clutched at his heart. Would he lose Mia in the fight to safeguard something so dearly held? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Jake's hand trembled as he enveloped the heirloom, the weight of his decision anchoring him in place. Could he really shield Mia from the encroaching storm? Would his affluence serve as a divider instead of a bridge? As profound feelings of anguish churned within him, he looked into the vast night, feeling utterly alone yet surrounded by memories and relics. Ultimately, he faced an agonizing question. In the battle for love and family legacy, what was he willing to sacrifice? His future or his past? As the shadows lengthened around him, the answers remained elusive. But Jake could not shake the fear that the choices ahead were about to change everything forever. The morning light filtered through the tall windows of Jake's kitchen, illuminating his thoughts as he paced restlessly. The heirloom rested heavily on the counter, a constant reminder of the impending conflict. Could he allow himself to love Mia fully, knowing the battle that awaited? The thought felt like a betrayal. His heart ached at the duality of his desires. He was thrust into a whirlpool of possibilities, torn between familial duty and emotional risk. The stakes encapsulated every ounce of his being, amplifying every whisper of doubt he had, echoing back to moments spent with Mia in their exploratory conversations. Those snippets of truth about her life, struggles, and dreams collided with his childhood memories of his grandmother's unwavering strength. The values he'd been taught clashed spectacularly with the newfound yearning for connection. Why can't I just be happy? He muttered to himself as he scrubbed a glass devoid of fingerprints, trying to focus on the mundane task to chase away the storm of his thoughts. In that moment, he realized he wasn't merely grappling with the aspects of love or legacy. He was wrestling with his very identity, who he was as a man, and what he believed he should be. With determination, he decided to visit the quaint plot belonging to his grandmother that once echoed with laughter and family gatherings. Jake could see it from the kitchen window. The vibrant blooming flowers and overgrown grass summoned him like a siren. Yet the business adversary lurking in the shadows was a constant reminder that the land's fate was hanging by a thread. He put on his jacket, flicking the heirloom piece softly, letting it guide him to the memories of the life that had flourished there. As he drove, an unsettling combination of nostalgia and anxiety wrapped around him. This trip was not just about protecting his heritage, it was about reclaiming parts of himself he had tucked away. Upon arrival, the weight of unease seemed to dissipate, replaced instead by the richness of memories. The old oak tree his grandmother would sit under while spinning tales of their family's history, the rickety fence that once held far more than just boundaries. Jake felt an emotional surge as he stepped onto the freshly sprung grass. "This is what I want," he whispered to himself, determination igniting within. He began snapping photos, envisioning ways to preserve the land while mingling Mia's world into the fold, an amalgamation of life lessons and shared futures. Jake's mind raced with newfound ideas for community projects, workshops, and nature retreats that could serve the neighborhood while honoring the values instilled in him. As he explored, the rustle of leaves brought him back to present reality. He could hear the breeze calling out, mirroring his inner reflection. Each step reminded him that Mia deserved honesty. She needed to know both the light and dark of his path. The looming question of how to share this with her consumed him. Jake's thoughts collided like thunder. He was on the precipice of a revelation about home, love, and the power of vulnerability. He felt two worlds collide, the legacy he was meant to uphold against the potential future with Mia. Just then, he realized confrontation was inevitable. He had to face both his past and present, revealing his truth to her. His phone buzzed in his pocket, breaking the trance. There, lit up on the screen, was Mia, her name a beacon of hope and challenge. He took a deep breath, the weight of his future pressing on his shoulders. The undeniable truth lingered. The time had come to face her. Would she embrace his world and help shape the future he envisioned? Or would the strenuous weight of legacy cost him everything? With resolve, he pressed her name, bound to reveal everything. Jake's heart raced as he answered the call, the sound of Mia's voice radiating a warmth that soothed the tempest within him. "Hey, I've been thinking about you. Are you okay?" she asked, her concern piercing through the uncertainty that had enveloped him. "Yeah, I'm here at the property. Just needed some space to think," he replied, instinctively glancing around at the familiar sights that comforted him yet haunted him at the same time. Her presence, even through the phone, galvanized him, a reminder of the life he yearned to build. "Can I come by? I want to see it," she suggested, without hesitation. Her eagerness momentarily caught him off guard. He hesitated. Every impulse told him to shield her from the weight pressing down on him. But in that instant, he became aware of a growing resolve rising within. This was not merely about them. It was about facing the truth. "Sure, come by. I need to talk to you about something important," he managed to say, his voice steadier than he felt. As he ended the call, he took a moment to assess his surroundings, the rich hues of the garden contrasting sharply with the uncertainty of his mind. This ground was soaked in history. It was his anchor, yet it was also a source of turmoil. With resolve, he pressed her name, bound to reveal everything. Jake's heart raced as he answered the call, the sound of Mia's voice radiating a warmth that soothed the tempest within him. "Hey, I've been thinking about you. Are you okay?" she asked, her concern piercing through the uncertainty that had enveloped him. "Yeah, I'm here at the property. Just needed some space to think," he replied, instinctively glancing around at the familiar sights that comforted him yet haunted him at the same time. Her presence, even through the phone, galvanized him, a reminder of the life he yearned to build. "Can I come by? I want to see it," she suggested, without hesitation. Her eagerness momentarily caught him off guard. He hesitated. Every impulse told him to shield her from the weight pressing down on him. But in that instant, he became aware of a growing resolve rising within. "Sure, come by. I need to talk to you about something important," he managed to say,
his voice steadier than he felt. As he ended the call, he took a moment to assess his surroundings, the rich hues of the garden contrasting sharply with the uncertainty of his mind. This ground was soaked in history. It was his anchor, yet it was also a source of turmoil.
He could almost hear his grandmother's voice. She would have told him that love and legacy could coexist, but he had to be willing to embrace both. While waiting, Jake began sketching ideas in a notebook he had retrieved from his backpack. A thrilling sense of purpose took hold as he mapped out community workshops that would celebrate not only the land, but also the stories that lived within it. He envisioned Mia's hands intertwined with his as they transformed the property into a space for connection, one both he and Mia could nurture. There was creativity here, a sense of collaboration that excited him. The rustling of leaves interrupted his thoughts, and he turned to find Mia approaching. Her face lit up with a genuine smile, and it tugged at his heart, eventually quieting the voices of self-doubt. "Wow, this place is beautiful," she exclaimed, spinning around to take in the landscape with bright-eyed wonder. "Yeah, it holds a lot of memories," he replied, emotion surging within him. The heavy legacy traced through their family started to feel less like a burden and more like a testimony of survival, a story worth sharing. As they walked together, Mia became revitalized by the landscape, her excitement palpable. "What do you want to do with it?" she asked, pausing at the old oak tree. Jake took a breath, grounding himself in that moment. "I want to turn it into a place where people can come together to learn and grow, a retreat where stories can be shared, just like my grandfather used to do." Her gaze softened, and she nodded in understanding, which built a bridge between their worlds. "That sounds amazing. We could host workshops or even some art programs," she suggested, a spark igniting behind her eyes. At that moment, he realized the plan wasn't just a dream anymore. It was a vision they could cultivate together. Yet, the truth remained lodged like a splinter in his heart. The weight of whether Mia would accept the backlash from the business challenges loomed over him like a storm cloud. Jake could feel the walls of his self-imposed isolation shaking. Vulnerability had never come easily to him, but now it felt necessary. "Mia, I need to tell you something important about this land, about my family, and about the risks I'm facing." He swallowed hard, locking eyes with her as anticipation filled the air. Her expression turned serious, and he saw the depth of her commitment to understanding him. "Whatever it is, I promise I'll listen," she said softly, a sweet challenge wrapped in readiness. Jake took a deep breath, ready to plunge into the depths of his truth. The air shifted around them, poised for revelation. He was teetering on the edge of both peril and potential. The collision of his two worlds was imminent. Would his honesty fortify their connection or unravel it completely? The moment had arrived, and with it, the question that could change everything hung uncomfortably between them. Had he ultimately prepared himself to lay bare the legacy that haunted him? Jake began to speak, his voice steadying as he plunged into the truth that awaited. Jake's breath caught in his throat as the weight of his family's legacy threatened to swallow him whole. His words stumbled over the threshold of his lips, each syllable a brick in the wall he had built around himself. "I've inherited this land, but it comes with a lot of baggage," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "My parents had dreams for this property, but after their passing, it fell into a kind of disarray." Mia's expression shifted from one of curiosity to something deeper, understanding. She took a step closer, the seriousness in her eyes encouraging him to continue. "There are debts that come with it, complications with the business my family started, and I'm struggling to know how to keep it, how to make it viable again." The words hung in the air like dark clouds, shadows infiltrating the vibrant energy of their earlier conversation. He had expected her to recoil, to distance herself from a reality that felt anything but romantic. Instead, he saw a flicker of resolve in her gaze. "Jake, I didn't know," she whispered, breaking that heavy silence. "But why didn't you talk about this before? You don't have to carry it alone." Her sincerity punctured the fortress he had fortified over months, revealing a vulnerability he had never expected to display. The walls he thought had kept him safe began to crumble, brick by brick. "I thought I could handle it," he admitted, the confession cascading with reluctance.
I didn't want to weigh you down with my burdens. I feared that the pressures would drive you away. She shook her head, disbelief casting shadows over her features. I want to be here, Jake. I want to help. That's what partnerships are for. There was an empowering conviction in her voice, one he found both intoxicating and intimidating. Jake's internal conflict intensified. He had spent so long guarding his heart, convinced that showing weakness meant failure. Yet, as he stood amidst the backdrop of history, vulnerability no longer seemed like a liability. It felt transformative. The realization that this wasn't merely about him, but about a shared ambition sparked hope. I could use your insight, he said, feeling the stirrings of collaboration awaken within him. You have a gift for connecting people. What if we brainstormed? Maybe we can find a way to revitalize this place together. Mia's smile returned, illuminating the encroaching gloom. Exactly. If we plan strategically, we can develop something unique here. Perhaps marketing the land's history could attract visitors. We just need to find the right approach. As ideas began to flow, Jake felt a surge of energy. He set aside his fears and embraced the possibility of shared dreams. Conversations shifted towards practicalities, planning community engagement, revitalizing old structures, organizing showcases of local artisans. The vision of creating a retreat metamorphosed from a fracture
his past to a collaborative future. But deep down, the specter of his unresolved fears continued to lurk. Would Mia sincerely be able to endure the pressures that came with the property? Could their blossoming partnership withstand the challenges that lay ahead? Doubt seeped into his chest like a cold specter of the past, but he brushed it aside. Just as they began tackling potential marketing strategies, a sudden rustle from the overgrown hedge nearby sent a jolt through his spine. The sound seemed to echo the sudden tension that sprung between them at the realization that external forces could derail their plans. What was that? Mia asked, instinctively stepping closer to him. I don't know, Jake answered, feeling the blood drain from his face. Pride battled with fear, urging him to dismiss this disturbance as inconsequential. Yet something in the pit of his stomach warned him otherwise. In that moment, he understood that sharing the weight of his family's legacy was not the only challenge before them. The journey they were embarking on was steeped in more layers and complications than he could fathom, and the stakes were rising. As Jake turned to confront the noise, a shadow loomed just beyond the hedge, reminding him that the stakes of his past were now interwoven with his future. The confrontation he had avoided for so long was creeping ever closer. What if there's more at play here than we realize? He murmured, caught between anticipation and trepidation. The time had come to face not just his fears, but the external forces threatening their vision. What awaited them in the tangled mess of his legacy, and how would it impact what they were beginning to build together? Jake felt the tension coiling in the air like a tight spring, ready to snap. As the rustling intensified, he stepped forward, catching a glimpse of movement, a figure lurking among the shadows. Instinctively, he called out, "Who's there?" A brief pause hung in the air, heavy with uncertainty, before a young man emerged from the dense underbrush. With unkempt hair and dirt-streaked clothes, he radiated a sense of both desperation and defiance. Jake's heart raced. This wasn't merely an intrusion, this was a reminder of the very vulnerabilities he'd been grappling with. "Milo," Mia said softly, recognition flooding her eyes. "What are you doing here?" The young man shifted his weight, eyes darting between them. I heard about what your family used to do here. Thought maybe you'd consider reviving some of the old practices," he said, the tremor in his voice barely masking a flicker of hope. Jake could feel Mia's gaze seeping into him, demanding understanding. "What do you mean?" he asked cautiously, half tempted to turn the conversation away from his insecurities. "The land has potential," Milo said, each word a small stone thrown into a pond, sending ripples throughout Jake's carefully crafted barrier. "But it needs hands, real hands, people willing to put in sweat and effort. There's a community still connected to this place, but they've been waiting for someone to reignite the fire." As the truth of Milo's words sank in, Jake felt his mind racing with strategy. If there were others like Milo willing to invest energy and passion, perhaps there was a way to weave their collective hope into his fractured legacy. Collaboration could mean revival, not just survival. Mia, Jake said, his voice steadier now, what if we involve the community, not just in marketing, but in doing the work? The idea formed in his mind like storm clouds swelling, ripe with potential. We could offer workshops, hands-on projects. It would give locals a stake in the property, a reason to care. Her eyes brightened in response. They were standing on the precipice of something larger than themselves, the interconnectedness of community and legacy unfolding before them. Yet doubt whispered in the back of Jake's mind. Was he ready to break down the walls entirely? Could he genuinely depend on the very community he had kept at arm's length? Milo's determination seemed to ignite that flicker of resolve in Jake. I can organize people, the young man insisted. There are folks who remember the old ways, farmers, artisans. I can gather them. Mia nodded, enthusiasm amplifying her usual rationale. Yes, let's host an open meeting, show them the land, share our vision. As they walked back toward the old barn, ideas unfurling like vines reaching for sunlight, Jake felt the gravity of his past combined with the momentum of their budding collaboration. The structure loomed above them, a silent witness to their transformation. Yet Jake sensed the weight of responsibility creeping back. He had to make hard choices, delve deeper into his past, confront the debts and the complications. Each decision bore repercussions, but a flicker of possibility urged him to push forward. Tell me more about what you envision, Milo, Jake demanded, his voice steadying as determination hardened into focus. We can make this work together. Yet somewhere beneath the surface, an unsettling feeling nestled in his gut. The question lingered. Would this partnership withstand the storm brewing in the shadows? As another rustle shattered their buoyant discussion, Jake's heart plummeted with the certainty that the answer lay just beyond reach. He braced for the unexpected, fear tingling at the edges of his resolve. Who or what else was waiting to emerge from the mess of his legacy? The next moment could define everything, and Jake was determined to face it head-on. No more walling off his fears, no more retreating into silence. But as he glanced at the hedge again, the question loomed larger than ever. Were they ready to confront the shadows that threatened to consume everything they were beginning to build? Jake stood at the threshold of the barn, the wooden structure heavy with unexamined memories. With Milo and Mia's energy bubbling around him, he felt the conflicting forces of hope and apprehension swirling inside. The barn's hollow echo seemed to mock his indecision. The very walls pulsed with the weight of untold stories waiting for the right moment to surface. Right then, he said, forcing a calmness he didn't entirely feel. Let's create a plan. We need a meeting agenda, something that showcases what we're envisioning. The words propelled him forward, but a nagging whisper cautioned him to assess his own readiness for this leap into vulnerability. Milo stepped closer, his enthusiasm infectious. I think it's crucial we highlight the direct impact of their involvement on the land. We could show how old practices sustainably contribute to the community, invigorating both the economy and the environment. Jake observed Milo, a young man willing to risk his dreams on the hope of revival, and it filled him with both admiration and dread. It caused a flicker of illumination in Jake's own self-awareness. After years of protecting his heart from disappointment, what would it take for him to trust again and invest in something larger than himself? I like the idea, but we have to be prepared. Opening this place isn't just about the land. It's about building credibility within a community that's rightfully cautious of us. He knew that trust was fragile, easily shattered by past mistakes and arrogance. What made him different now? Mia interjected with clarity. Jake, this is your moment to reshape your legacy. You need to let them see not just the business side, but the person behind it, the real you. His thoughts paused. Could he strip away the guardrails he'd built around himself? Was he prepared to face old wounds to forge a new path? The warmth of possibility mingled with the chill of fear, and Jake pushed through the discomfort. We need to open up about our own experiences, why we believe in this land and its potential. authenticity will invite openness. As they strategized, plans began to formulate. Milo brought forth ideas about interactive workshops, while Mia suggested including stories of past failures and success. Jake found himself engaging, pulling nuggets of wisdom from his parents' legacy, transforming them into lessons for the present. He sensed his perspective shifting, a newfound clarity shaping his understanding of who he wanted to become. However, even as they deliberated, the shadow of doubt hung low. What if the community rejected them outright? Or worse, what if they did accept him, only to expose him to the vulnerabilities he had hidden for so long? The potential for failure lurked like a specter, creeping through the cracks of his insecurities. "Milo," he asked brusquely, "what if we host an event but no one comes? Or they come and turn us away?" Milo smiled, his confidence radiating around them. "It's a risk we have to take, Jake. Transformation happens in the face of adversity. Sometimes you have to expose your fears to find your strength." Jake felt those words strike a deep chord. The battle within intensified. He had to decide whether to remain within the safety of old habits or take bold steps into the unknown. It was a gamble, one that could redefine his life. "I'll reach out to a few people I know," Jake finally resolved, determination settling into his chest like iron. "We can set the stage for something meaningful." Yet, just as an ember of hope began to ignite, a dark memory flickered across his mind. In the past, he had promised deliverance, only to watch it crumble under pressure. Would this time genuinely be different, or was he destined for the same fate? The question lingered as they wrapped up their planning. Jake's heart raced with uncertainty, the stakes elevated. This was more than a business venture. This was about redefining himself and healing old wounds. As the sun dipped beneath the horizon, leaving shadows to lengthen, he could feel the storm gathering once more. Would he be able to confront his past and rise above it, harnessing the potential waiting in the depths? Or would he falter, trapped by his old patterns? The weight of those uncertainties pressed down as he stepped away from the barn, the real challenge only just beginning. What awaited him in those depths of connection and commitment? The answers felt tantalizingly close, concealed within the shadows of his legacy. Jake walked away from the barn with a resolve fueled by a mix of trepidation and longing. Each step felt heavy with the memories of promises unkept, echoing like the barn's hollow whispers. He was caught in a mental tug-of-war, grappling with the perceived safety of commitment against the raw, unfiltered urge to break free from the shackles of his past. His phone buzzed, breaking his trance. It was a text from an old friend, inviting him to a community gathering in town. The timing felt almost sarcastic, a direct challenge to confront his own intentions. Could he face a crowd of familiar faces who may still remember the reckless decisions of his earlier years? With a slight tremor in his hands, he typed a response, and with it, he initiated his first step into vulnerability. The gathering loomed like a gaping mouth ready to swallow him whole. He spent hours thinking about his approach, rehearsing how to unveil the man he had aspired to become, not the one who had been lost to dysfunction. The thought of standing before a group, sharing his vision, terrified him. Yet, wasn't this precisely what he needed? A chance to weave his renewed identity into the fabric of the community he had distanced himself from. Arriving at the venue, the warmth of laughter and conversation wrapped around him, but it was suffocating. He felt like an outsider peering through a window into a life he was yearning to reclaim. Voices rang out, punctuated by laughter, but it became a cacophony overshadowing his anxiety. Minutes passed, and Jake hovered by the entrance, his mind racing with fears. Would they remember the failures? Would they even care? Then, amid the chatter, Mia's voice cut through, cheerful yet firm. "Jake, you made it!" Her smile felt like a lifeline, pulling him into the crowd. Grateful yet wary, he approached her. "I didn't think I could show up." "Why not? This is exactly where you should be, talking with everyone," she said. "We're in this together." Her words were grounding, a buoy amidst his turbulent sea of uncertainty. But Jake couldn't help but wonder if their intentions matched reality. As the evening unfolded, Conversations intrigued him. Attendees spoke passionately about their connections to the land, each story a thread forming a tapestry of shared values and dreams. Jake found the courage to introduce himself, sharing his plans tentatively, eyes darting to gauge reactions. Initially, the reception was polite, raised eyebrows and nods. But the deeper he delved into his aspirations, the more he felt the room tighten with interest. Then it happened. A voice rose above the murmur. "Who's to say you'll succeed? We haven't forgotten your past." The sting pierced through the hopeful atmosphere like a sudden winter chill. All eyes turned to him, curiosity mingled with skepticism. Jake's heart raced. He could either retreat or confront the doubt head-on. "You're right," he replied, fighting to keep his voice steady. "I've made terrible mistakes, and I can't change the past. But I can promise to learn from it. I want to build something for the future that invites everyone in." His voice grew firmer, passion rising. "I need to be part of this community, and I believe together we can restore not just the land, but trust." The challenge resonated. Whispers danced through the crowd, some heads nodding in understanding. He felt a spark ignite, bolstered by their cautious acceptance. Perhaps vulnerability could indeed be a bridge rather than a chasm. But even as he felt momentum shift, unease still lingered beneath the surface. What if he failed again? His promise felt precarious, balancing on the edge of revelation and uncertainty. Despite that nagging fear, the warmth of connection began to fill the gaps within him, a potential he hadn't recognized before. As he engaged further, exchanging ideas, seeking advice, Jake realized he was not just redeeming himself, but also reclaiming agency over his narrative. This event was a crucial juncture, an opportunity to mold his personal journey with the community he had yearned to belong to. Yet, as the gathering continued, the shadows of doubt loomed still. What would happen if their initial interest faded? Would they truly accept him, or was it all a facade? His next move mattered, and as Jake took a deep breath, he prepared himself for the steps ahead, knowing the stakes had only just risen. What awaited him beyond this first encounter? Would he break through, or would old scars resurface to define his future? The answers lingered, just out of reach, challenging him to push forward into the next chapter of his life. As the evening approached its inevitable close, Jake felt the adrenaline of his earlier confrontation still pulsing through his veins. He had presented his plans.
Vision, not just a pitch to reclaim his past, but a means to redefine himself. Yet he couldn't shake the feeling that his next steps were even more crucial than this first tentative showing. He engaged in conversations, feeling the nexus of connections he had long desired. The warmth of camaraderie slowly chipped away at the barriers he had built around himself, and for the first time in years, he allowed himself small glimpses of hope. It was an intoxicating feeling, a mix of possibility and danger. However, as he navigated through the crowd, seeking affirmation in each smile and nod, the shadow of doubt crept in again. What if they were merely being polite? What if they were laughing at him behind their hands, thinking he was naive to think he could change who he was? With each moment, he caught snippets of laughter and challenges around him, individuals discussing projects that whispered of grander ambitions. Jake leaned into these exchanges, more fervently, but unease fluttered in his chest like a caged bird. Each shared ambition was a mirror, reflecting the many facets of risk he was willing to take. Yet they also reminded him of the stakes, the burning desire for acceptance clashing with the fear of rejection. When Mia drew him aside, her expression was off. "Jake, I'm proud of you, but you know that some people will always remember your past, right?" Her words took a second to process. He felt the familiar sting of defensiveness, but he tempered it, mindful of his growth. "I can't change what happened. I can only build on it. I want to show them I'm reliable, deserving of their trust." Mia nodded, but her hesitation left Jake unsettled. "Just keep your expectations in check. Building bridges takes time." Time. The one resource he painfully acknowledged he had wasted before.
As he polished his vision and strategized where to take it next, he realized he had to confront not just the community's expectations, but his own. Jake spent sleepless nights drafting plans, pinning together ideas for a potential community project, a garden that could serve both as a food source and a collaboration space. Its roots would run deeper than mere soil. It would symbolize growth, togetherness, and trust. This new venture would be the test, one that scratched at the edge of his ambition while playing against his fears. The first light of dawn found Jake hunched over his kitchen table, surrounded by sketches and notes. He felt a fire igniting within him, stoked by the fear of falling short again. But then clarity emerged. This was not just about his redemption. It was about leading by example, delivering on promises with tangible actions. As he gathered the courage to reach out to others, he paused, hesitating. Would they rally behind his vision, or would the memories of his past haunt him once more? So many questions swirled within him, questions that both thrilled and terrified him. He could distinctly sense the boundaries of his new reality.
Each step was fraught with peril, yet full of potential. There was no safety net this time, only the raw integrity of his aspirations. Jake took a deep breath, letting it strengthen his resolve. He formulated a plan, one that involved asking for guidance, seeking allies, and slowly curating a circle that could bolster his ambitions. But as he stepped outside to greet the new day, a sudden chill ran down his spine. A figure stood at the far edge of the property, observing him. His heart raced as he faced the possibility of old ghosts lurking just beyond his sight. The embodiment of his past, perhaps? Would they challenge him, remind him of his failures? With determination, Jake focused on the horizon and the dreams just waiting to unfold. He knew he had to confront whatever shadow awaited him and unveil the hidden strengths he had yet to fully realize. The time had come to address more than his community. It was time to face himself. Was he ready for the truth, regardless of how it might challenge him? The next chapter of his journey awaited, not just within the bounds of the garden he envisioned, but deep within his own soul. Would he forge ahead into the light, or would darkness still have a hold? Jake felt his pulse quicken as he stepped towards the figure at the edge of the property. The morning fog hung heavy in the air, blurring the lines between past and present, reality and nightmare. The shape was just a silhouette, a shadow with contours he recognized all too well. "Is that you, Jake?" The voice cut through the mist, unmistakably familiar, yet laced with a dissonance that sent chills down his spine. He steadied his breath, drawing on the resolve he had mustered during sleepless nights. "Yeah, it's me." As he moved closer, Jake's mind raced. He had promised himself that the decisions he made now were foundational for the future he envisioned, one built on resilience and trust. But here stood Ethan, a reminder of his darker days, the specter of doubt rekindled. "What do you want?" Jake's tone was more confrontational than he had intended, but it was a reflex born from years of feeling small. "I heard you were trying to start some kind of garden project." Ethan smirked, his arms crossed. "Focused on creating something beautiful, huh? Thought you might be too busy with your other pursuits." Jake's jaw tightened. "I'm not that person anymore. I want to be someone better." Ethan stepped closer, the sunlight breaking through the clouds and casting elongated shadows. "People don't just forget, Jake. They remember you. Some might even relish the idea of watching you fail again." His words stung, but Jake sensed the import of this confrontation. It wasn't just about battling Ethan. It was about battling the notions anchored in his own psyche. "I'm not asking for their forgiveness," Jake responded, a newfound confidence lacing his words. "I'm showing them. I'm gilding something that stands for hope. For me." Ethan laughed, the sound hollow and mocking. "Hope, huh? You think planting a few vegetables will wipe away the memories? Good luck with that." But the cold indifference in Ethan's tone ignited something within Jake. This wasn't merely an exchange. It was a confrontation with his own fears, his history, gnawing away at the confidence he had begun to cultivate. "Why does it bother you?" Jake asked, realizing that the real battle was not with Ethan, but with the fragments of his past that still whispered doubts into his ear. Ethan's expression shifted, momentarily revealing a flicker of something deeper. Fear, perhaps? You don't understand. People are watching. What if you fall? What happens then? Jake's heart raced, not from fear, but from the realization that this was the moment he would have to turn that fear into fuel. So what? They watch? Let them. I'm done hiding behind my mistakes. Ethan's bravado faltered, and Jake suddenly felt a burden lifting. Maybe he couldn't sway the opinions of every person with memories anchored in his past, but he refused to be defined by it. I'm going to make this garden happen. It'll be proof that I'm more than what I was. Wouldn't it be something if I turn this place into a space for hope and renewal? Jake pushed forward, the momentum building. What are you going to do, Jake? Gather all the lost souls and sing Kumbaya? Ethan's sarcasm was palpable, but Jake saw through it. Beneath Ethan's cynicism lay a lingering fear of vulnerability. No, I'll gather strength, share stories, and connect through the roots of the plants I grow. I'll show them you can reshape who you are, to cultivate trust, even in harsh environments. As Jake spoke, clarity washed over him. The project was no longer a mere venture. It was a testament, a legacy to redefine himself. He could visualize the space, filled with laughter and growth, marking a new beginning for himself and others who sought the same. Whether Ethan believed in him was irrelevant. What mattered was that Jake was finally willing to believe in himself. I'll prove you wrong, Jake declared, lifting his chin defiantly. He pivoted, ready to leave the past behind and face his future head-on. But as he turned, a lingering question remained. Was embracing this new vision enough to truly distance himself from his past? The thought trailed behind him like a whisper, echoing in the silence that followed. In the depth of his mind, a new voice arose, a challenge compelling him to delve deeper. Would he unravel the layers of his past fully, or merely skim the surface? The journey was just beginning, and Jake realized that if he wished to transform others, he would first have to excavate the truth within himself. What undiscovered facets of his character awaited his exploration? And what would he find as he dug deeper? Jake stood on the threshold of his grandmother's land, the once overgrown grass now trimmed and vibrant under his watchful eye. The garden project, the vision that had been born of vulnerability and connection, was finally coming to life. Within weeks, community members had rallied, attending workshops and participating in the planting days that had transformed not just the landscape, but the very fabric of the community. As he walked through the rows of budding vegetables and flowers, Jake felt satisfaction settle in his chest like a warm embrace. Each plant represented not just growth in the earth, but growth within himself. He had become an architect of renewal, not only in the soil, but in his own life. The community came together as families shared laughter, exchanged gardening tips, and forged bonds that had long needed nurturing. The garden was thriving, but more importantly, he was thriving. His achievements were no longer clouded by past failures. Instead, they shimmered like the green leaves basking in the sun. The heaviness that had once resided in his heart had ebbed away, replaced by a robust self-confidence. He had learned to face not only the doubts of others, but more importantly, the hesitations of his own heart. He had established himself as a leader, willing to embrace the messiness of life, imperfections included. Recognition flowed in from all directions. Local press featured stories highlighting the transformation of the land and the impact it had on the community. Jake received note after note of gratitude, each word reinforcing that he was not just an affluent outsider trying to carve a niche, but rather an integral part of something larger than himself. At the first community potluck, he caught Mia's eye across the tables. Her smile radiated pride and gratitude for what they had built together. As they laughed with children who darted around the garden, Jake felt a profound understanding wash over him. Love thrived in authenticity, in shared aspirations, and in vulnerability. "You're doing great things here, you know that?" Mia said, nudging him gently as they watched a group of children dig with purpose. "Thanks to you," he replied, a genuine smile spreading across his face. "You believed in me when I didn't know if I could even trust myself." She brushed her hair from her face, those determined eyes glowing with warmth. "We believed in each other, that's what matters."
Moments later, Jake found himself standing behind a makeshift podium, the evening sun dipping low, turning the sky into a canvas of colors. The attendance surpassed his expectations yet again, and as he looked over the crowd, neighbors, friends, and even Ethan held in tentative applause, he felt the weight of his journey collide with purpose. "Thank you all for being here," he began, his voice steady and resonant. "Today isn't just about celebrating the fruits of our labor. It's about recognizing that we are capable of transformation, both in soil and in soul." He paused, letting the words hang, feeling the sincerity ripple through the audience. "I spent so long being afraid to expose my vulnerabilities,
To let anyone in. But look at what we've built. Together, we can reclaim not just this land, but our hopes and the community we share. Let's remember, it's in our unity that we foster strength." The applause erupted around him, not just for the garden, but for the man he had chosen to become. Jake stood taller, buoyed by the visible consensus. These were not mere gestures of approval. They were affirmations of a past finally reconciled with the present. As he continued to speak, he saw Ethan nodding, slowly breaking down his walls. They had shared something profound, not an agreement, but an understanding that echoes of the past could harmonize within new beginnings. Jake made a mental note to reach out, to build on that potential. The celebration continued long into the evening, filled with laughter and shared tales. It marked a milestone, not the end, but a testament to what was possible when authenticity bridged the gaps of isolation. Jake had demonstrated that confronting fears and embracing vulnerability could yield immeasurable rewards. As twilight settled over them, he caught a glimpse of Mia's proud smile. In that moment, he realized that the journey was not merely the reclamation of land or legacy. It was the affirmation of a love that had bloomed amidst uncertainty, rooted firmly in honesty and acceptance. Jake Mercer had transformed. He had conquered the paradox of love and legacy, proved that vulnerability fortified connections, and achieved the belief within himself that had once felt so elusive. His commitment to nurturing both the land and its people resonated deeply, and as he stood amid the burgeoning garden of his dreams, he felt invincible. This was his moment, not just in the garden, but in life, filled with promise, immeasurable growth, and a future waiting to be cultivated. Now, as the chapters of his journey unfolded, he recognized the intricate dance between past, present, and a hopeful future, reminding him that real transformation was ongoing. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive emotional stories that will inspire you. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support for these personal overcoming journeys. Comment your reactions and theories about this awe-inspiring ending. Your thoughts matter more than you know. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to discover their own path of transformation. Let's spread this message together.